Hello, friends. Welcome back to Get Happy, Be Fit. Today, we are going to talk about an element of fitness that aids in longevity and is often overlooked because people tend not to associate it with weight loss. I think sometimes we all get so focused on wanting to burn calories or build muscle that we often don't take the time to stretch and improve our mobility. I have definitely been guilty of this, and recently I've talked to a couple of listeners and clients who also seem to have had trouble incorporating it into their routine. I have always been naturally flexible. I used to be a dancer, I did gymnastics when I was a kid, and I had a very short stint of cheerleading, and all of these things had flexibility as a primary focus. And later in my early 20s, I was a Pilates and yoga instructor, and for the majority of my life, I always had stretching in my routine. Even when I first started lifting, I was really good about taking a significant amount of time after my workouts to stretch and foam roll and do good things for my muscles. Then I injured my hip, and even after it was better, I lost a lot of mobility. I wasn't nearly as flexible as I had been, and honestly, I was pretty scared of stretching and pulling at my hip because I didn't want to re-injure it or tear something again. By the time I felt like my hip was pretty much at 100%, and I felt like I could do most of the things I did before I injured it, and I probably could have stretched it more without any issues, I started prepping for the bikini competition, and I was working full time, and I felt like my time was extremely limited, which honestly it was. And the most important thing to me was to get in my cardio and my weight training. And I just never wanted to take the time to stretch because I always needed to be on to the next thing, and stretching wasn't going to get me show lean, so I just put it on the back burner and didn't make it a priority. But this really took a toll on my body. I was in a lot of pain, and eventually I got to the point where I was having to have pretty much weekly massages. It was a good thing I worked at a spa because my body was just so imbalanced and all of my muscles were so tight. And I started making a point to stretch again and to stretch in the hot tub after my workouts, which was really helpful. And eventually I felt like things were better, but I still never got the full extent of my flexibility back. And y'all, I keep getting back in this rut of not stretching and not foam rolling and just generally not taking care of my muscles the way I need to. Then recently, I started back on my compound lifts after having to take a break from them, and I started having problems with my hip again. I was having a hard time walking. It would catch when I would take a step and then cramp up, and it sucked. And I could also tell my hips were really imbalanced. It just felt all wonky. It was just bad news all around. So I started a daily stretching routine, which I'm super proud of myself for doing. And I've been massaging and foam rolling, and while my hip is somewhat better, I'm still having some difficulty. And on top of that, it is astounding how much of my flexibility I have lost. And like I was saying earlier, I think a lot of us just want to lose weight or look a certain way, and we may not be thinking about longevity and helping our bodies function the best they can for as long as they can. Really high impact workouts, while good for weight loss and cardiovascular health, can take their toll on your body and limit mobility and even cause injury and a lot of pain as you get older. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do high impact workouts, but making sure you're doing things that also help your mobility and flexibility will really serve you in the long run. I was talking to Todd about the fact that he is an amazing runner, but he never stretches. And I said, do you want to be able to bend over or squat down when you're 70? Because you can run all day and be super lean, but at some point, if you don't balance it with mobility and stretching, you're not going to be able to do those everyday activities when you're older. And chances are you won't be able to run because you'll probably end up with a bunch of injuries and joint problems. So think of this as a form of loving your body, and think about what kind of mobility you want to have when you're older and start working towards that now. My suggestion is to always take time to stretch and take care of your muscles. Even if it's only one day a week that you take time to do it. You could start a yoga practice, start foam rolling. You can get those pretty cheap on Amazon. Get massages. They're awesome and they're very good for you. Take hot baths in Epsom salt. Then do some stretches after the hot bath because warm muscles are always more pliable. I will even put a heating pad on my problem areas before I stretch. Also do some research about different stretches you can do for your individual needs. One of my listeners who I love dearly is also a patron for the Get Happy Be Fit Patreon. And he asked me if I had a stretching routine. And I was excited to tell him that I did. If he'd asked me like 3 weeks prior, I would have had to say that no, I don't. This listener's particular Patreon tier allows him to ask me questions that I answer in a video each month. But this month he didn't have any questions, so I'm going to be posting a video of the stretches I do. And he's also requested a video on my heavy lifting routine, so that will be on there soon as well, once my hip is feeling back to 100%. So if any of that is stuff that you would like to see, or you want your specific questions answered every month, and maybe get some suggestions on what stretches you should do for your problem areas, go to patreon.com/gethappybefit and get your questions answered while supporting the show. And remember to take care of your body. All right, that's all for today.